Hey, welcome back to the Market Mindset Podcast. I'm Matt Lairden, your host. I'm so grateful for you guys to be here watching today. Uh, finally had an opportunity to get together with Jim Ingersoll. He's a real estate wholesaler, real estate investor, and an educator. And if you look at his resume, it's just incredible, though. Author, investor, coach, philanthropist, Christian, husband, father, grandfather, host of the Real Estate Success Podcast, EliteDealmakers.com. He has a big event coming up in Richmond, Virginia, in about 120 days from now, March 26th, 27th, 28th. If you want to get into real estate investing, I encourage you to be there. He's a big philanthropist. He has a program called Share the Love, bringing mobility to individuals that normally wouldn't have access to wheelchairs and other mobile devices to keep them active. And like he says, there's no greater feeling than be able to help someone who can never pay you back for what you do. And I learned a lot from Jim. He's patient. Started off in the corporate world, and then sort of by necessity had a transition, decided to go into real estate. Been doing it a long time. Talks about his first deal, funny, how that worked out. And resilient individual. Besides just being a great guy, he's resilient. He had a Facebook following of his Elite Dealmaker group, over 300,000 individuals. A couple bad apples sort of ruined it, put a post up, maybe commercially that Facebook took down. We tried to get it reinstated, couldn't do it, but he's back up and running, never missed a step. Jim Ingersoll, Richmond, Virginia. I learn a lot from this guy. I love following him on social media. He's a give, and ask nothing in return. His charity, again, Share the Love, just an amazing organization, bringing mobility to individuals that don't have access to wheelchairs and other mobile devices to keep them walking around and transporting themselves, gives them independence. I could keep going. I mean, I've got notes for days here, but let's just jump right into it with Jim Ingersoll, Richmond, Virginia, founder of EliteDealmakers.com.
Hey, it's Matt Lairden again with the Market Mindset Podcast. I've been waiting for this great individual to come on the podcast for a long time. We managed to get it on the calendar, and I'm truly grateful to have Jim Ingersoll on. I think the first 15 minutes is just going to be going over your bio. The founder of Dealmaker community on Facebook. I would probably start off with saying a man of faith, a family man, a husband, a father, a grandfather, an investor, a coach. I mean, I can go on, philanthropist, and we'll definitely talk about that. We'll dovetail that in. Just a great guy, host of the Real Estate Success Podcast, EliteDealmakers.com. Big believer in network equals net worth. Jim, thank you for taking the time out of your schedule to be with us today.
Really, I'm excited to do this with you. I have not been doing podcasts for the last year and a half.
Okay.
But yours is one I wanted to connect with intention today. So thanks for this opportunity. I'm grateful for it.
Well, I am truly grateful. I mean, I don't know where to start. Let's just go. Real quick, we're 124 days out from the Elite Dealmaker Conference there in Richmond. I mean, it's growing every year, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It's been really good. We've been doing it for quite a while, but the last 3 years, Matt, have gotten a lot better because we put a mission behind it. And I think my wife and I really needed that piece. That was our missing link, honestly, for continuing to do it and continuing to try to scale it, was the mission. And you had mentioned it with Share the Love and some other nonprofits we're hoping to work with some, but it's going to be really good for that reason.
Yeah. I mean, so tell me about, from what I'm witnessing, expansive growth in the regional conferences. Where are you guys? I mean, I'm seeing Texas, she's got a great, is it Lisa J there?
Yeah.
She's got a great presence. Tell me about the different ones, how it works, how you've sort of, modeled and scaled this conference, and what exactly happens at these conferences.
So it's kind of crazy. Last year in March, we did Dealmaker. It was our largest one we've done. It's the 3-day event here in Richmond, Virginia. And at the end of that, I had two people approach my wife, Cheryl, and I with this idea. It was Pam Fisher in Raleigh-Durham and Bon Malpica in Orlando. And they said, we want to take what we're doing in the 3-day and bring it to our local city on a monthly meetup basis. And, man, one of the hardest things about an entrepreneur is figuring out when to say yes and when to say no.
Right.
But my wife and I thought, if this sort of leads back to our mission, then maybe it'll help us scale our annual events, and then that'll help our mission. So we said yes for that reason. And all of a sudden, now we're up to like a dozen cities that are doing these monthly meetups. And I've got interest in like 5 or 6 more cities right now. So, Philadelphia, Chattanooga, Green Bay. I mean, there's a bunch of them that'll be coming on, I think, in the next 60 days.
Wow. Okay, so for the audience, I mean, what's the purpose? What are you guys discussing at the? First of all, talk about your 3-day event, and then if you don't mind
Okay.
sharing what they're doing at the monthly meetups all over the U.S. and it's growing exponentially.
It is growing fast, which is really cool. So we're kind of taking like the 3-day meetup that we do in Richmond that everyone loves. It gets our mindset right and emphasizes integrity, responsibility, being collaborative, no egos, no competitors, and it's like a mastermind event, sort of. And then doing that more on a monthly basis around the country, sort of like a RIA meetup
Okay.
or Grid. Grid's another one that's been doing quite a few, and it's starting to take right off. And so that's what we're doing. We're taking like the mindset and the mission of the 3-day deal maker and the branding and like my shirt and everything else to those local areas. Some are rebranding, and others are just coming in and starting brand new meetups. So
Right.
it's been amazing.
Right. So again, for the people that are out there, I sign up for the 3-day event that's again 124 days, in your hometown. I walk in, what can I expect to learn? Who do I network with? Talk to me
Mhm.
about how the schedule and
Yeah.
the benefits of attending. Walk me through it, please.
Okay. Yeah, we've got another one in Orlando in January that got pushed out after the hurricane. That one's
Okay.
focused primarily on private lending, both
Okay.
for lenders and for borrowers, but really focusing heavy on private lending. So we're going to do some 3-day events around the country that'll be more focused on like a particular topic. I've had the idea of doing one with rentals as well, like regular rentals, furnished rentals, and midterm rentals. But we're doing private lending in Orlando, January 6, 7, and 8. And then in March, we're doing the annual in Richmond, Virginia. That's our biggest one. And when you walk in the door, you're going to be greeted. Your first time to our event, you may be a little bit nervous, especially if you're an introvert, like I have always been, by the way. I've had to break that out. So introverts are welcome because I used to be one. And but you're going to feel really welcome because the people come in with amazing mindset. And I always tell people, leave your ego at the door. Doesn't matter if you've done 300 deals, 3,000 deals, or 3. We want to help everybody on that entire range. So then we get rolling. So I have an opening, and then we have a keynote address with Mary Hart, a very good friend of mine. And this year she's going to hit really heavy into due diligence. And then I think following her, we have Eddie Speed speaking on notes. And he's going to speak on creating the best sticky notes that he can. And by sticky notes, I'm not talking about Post-its,
Okay.
because a lot of people are doing owner financing and they're not creating notes that are sellable. So we're going to go through with Eddie Speed on this idea that he had of teaching people to create great notes that can be sold. And so that's going to be good. And then we have Jeff Watson, who's a good lawyer friend of mine. And we do panels, and then we do workshops, and it's all in, and it comes at you sort of like a fire hose, Matt, 3 straight days, and it goes early until late. There's dinners, stuff happens at our last one, Matt, that's completely organic. And it makes it kind of fun. Like there was a group that was out to dinner, and the waitress had some interest in quitting her job and starting to do real estate. Somebody brought her to Dealmaker, and she spent a day with us. And then somebody else made this Dealmaker music. They came up with a song that surprised me. And so we also have music elements, like we do the Star Spangled Banner, we do God Bless America. And then somebody wrote a song called Dealmaker. So it's a lot of organic stuff happening that I can't completely explain. I believe it's actually a lot bigger than me.
Well, I mean, a purpose-driven life, purpose-driven real estate here. I love it. How did you get started? Take us back to
Oh boy, you asked
the
good
very
questions.
beginning,
Oh
if
my
you can.
goodness. Well, I think I had some friends like David Phelps, and David and I, we did it. This goes way back before Zoom. Imagine those days, right?
Okay, yep.
It was like GoToWebinar or something. We did this teleseries, David Phelps and I did, and he's a dentist out of Dallas, and it was called like investing without paying taxes or whatever, investing grow rich, whatever it was.
Right.
And we did 2 teleseries, and it was audio only back then. There was no video, and that was like sort of our first any kind of content driven thing that I had done. And I did it with a friend of mine, David Phelps. Then he went on to start this huge mastermind for physicians and dentists called Freedom Founders. He's done a great job. He'd be a great guest for you.
Okay.
And so right when he was like starting Freedom Founders, we had this idea that we were going to do like an event together. We did one in Dallas. We had Eddie Speed may have spoken, I can't remember, and Quincy Long and some others. It was kind of a really small group. So I came back to Richmond and I did my first one. It was called Flipping for Profit or something like that. It was a 2-day event, very small, like 35 people. I mean, it was just really small. And, we just sort of grew from there. The next one I did was like investing without banks or something like that. Did one on private lending. And then then it just started like over the last 4 years, since like 2019, really rolling.
Yeah. Yep. So take it from say I'm a newbie and I'm coming and I've never, flipped real estate. I've never invested in real estate. Take me from, I mean, what was your first investment? I mean, looking back, how it dovetailed into what you're doing now.
My first investment didn't go so well, Matt. All right, but that's true for everybody. So this is an important story, and I'll lean into it because we were living back in New York State back then. And growing up, I watched my dad be a part-time landlord. He was a great guy and worked at an architectural firm and did some landlording on the side, and saw him buy a duplex and a triplex and some things. And Cheryl and I got married really young. She was 19, I was 21. And so we were like 23, and I thought, well, I want to be like my dad. He makes it look easy. So we bought a duplex, and it looked good on paper. The numbers penciled out. It was like $21,000. I mean, $10,000 a door back then, right?
Yeah.
What could go wrong?
Right.
Well, it could be 21 grand for a reason.
Right.
Usually it's repairs driven, right? So, we got like a regular conventional mortgage on that thing. So we didn't have any funding for repairs, and it needed a substantial amount of repairs. And we were undercapitalized. I was working as an engineer back then. And so, like, I remember in the winter in Jamestown, New York, was freezing cold because it's near Buffalo, and the boiler broke, and we couldn't afford to call somebody to fix it. I went to like Walden bookstore and bought a book on being a handyman and read it, and somehow I fixed the furnace, believe it or not. And so it was just like that sort of thing. And then, like, I didn't understand how to be a landlord either. I didn't have an application. I hardly had a lease. And like, I would work all day as an engineer and then meet tenants at night. And if they had a pulse and a deposit, in they go. And you know where that goes.
Right.
So we were undercapitalized. We didn't know how to manage. I had no training. I thought my dad made it look so easy, but it probably wasn't as easy as I thought it might have been. And so then I took a job transfer to Virginia here to Richmond with a division of Lucent Technologies, and we sold that. We sold it on a land contract, and the next day the guy refied it to actually get it paid off, and it worked out well. Didn't even lose money, but it was such a rough road that my wife Cheryl said, "That's it. I don't ever want to do this real estate thing again," and cost us about 10 years of investing. So the number one takeaway from that is fail, but then recover fast. It's okay to fail. We're all going to screw things up. But I had no network. I didn't understand financing really. I was undercapitalized. I didn't know how to be a landlord. I didn't have training network. groups like this that you're out there assisting with. That was my very first one.
And then, but you jumped back in. Did you jump
We
back
we
in
did end up
locally?
jumping back in here in Virginia. It took, like I said, a good 10 years before Cheryl would let me try it again. And, and then we bought a couple of properties that went pretty well. And then I was working here in Virginia in like 2005 or six, and I was told I was running two factories, Matt.
Okay.
And imagine that, manufacturing shutting down. And so I had to lay every single person off of these two factories I was running. And I said, that's it. I'm out. Like, I'm not doing this corporate America thing anymore. And I started wholesaling.
Okay.
And at first, wholesaling was a struggle too, because I was starting to get some training here and there, but I didn't really have confidence to sign a contract. And I'd get a contract signed and struggle with having a buyer. And then I'd have like a buyer but no property. And then one day we were driving in Petersburg, Virginia, and there was a little sign that said for rent, and this house was a piece of garbage, like it was trashy, right?
Yeah.
So I called the guy up. I'm like, well, how are you trying to rent this house out? And he said, well, I'm struggling to rent it, and I'm actually in pre-foreclosure on about 10 houses. So we signed a contract that day on the 10 houses. And all of a sudden, one after another, buyers wanted them. So I started wholesaling. And then everything clicked after like 3 or 4 months of struggling. And then everything went into sync. And the next year, I wholesaled over 100 houses. So I finally figured it out.
Wow. So for licensed agents out there, just real quick, the Cliff Note version of wholesaling. How would you describe what a wholesaler does?
Well, a wholesaler is going to work with people typically on houses that realtors don't love to list. Number one, it's usually sellers that are in some level of distress. In this case, it was a burned out landlord who was heading into pre-foreclosure. His name was Bob. I still remember him. And the houses were sort of trashy. They were incredibly cheap, like $20,000-$30,000 houses. Realtors don't make a lot of commission on houses that cheap.
Right.
They'd rather have a $300,000 house than a $30,000 house.
Yeah.
So, and then you sign a contract, and then you begin selling the rights to that contract through an assignment.
Right. Okay. So you get a house under contract. When you go in and you're wholesaling that house out, you get it under contract, you're basically selling the rights to purchase that house, correct?
Yeah. The first one I was just sort of learning as I went, and this is what everyone does, but I went to the title company on the very first one and said, like, how much money do I need how do I send you the money to buy this house so I can resell it on the assignment? And they're like, no, you assigned your contract. You're just going to walk away with the check. I'm like, oh, I kind of like this.
Right. Did you rehab the house yourself?
Nothing.
No, you don't do that. You just take the contract and market the contract to the end buyer. A big part of that calculation and your profit and what you're going into is you've got to look at ARV, right? The after repair value. How do you estimate those costs? You get the house under contract. How are you estimating the ARV value, after repair value, for those who aren't familiar?
You got to pull your comps. You got to know your comps. I think early on, I didn't really understand how to estimate repairs and how to estimate comps and repairs and ARV and all that. I was sort of winging it for a while.
Right.
But these days, there's a lot more technology and tools out there available to help you with all of that.
Right. Because now, you can go to Zillow, you can look up you look at comps for sales, closed, escrows, things like that. How big of a radius are you looking at when you pull comps? When you were pulling comps at the time, how big of a radius are you looking at, and what's your basis?
Try to find them as close as I can, always, even today. But after you start wholesaling a bit, you start realizing how much somebody will pay for something. And it gets a little bit easier because I built a really big buyers list back then, Matt, but I would say probably 10% of it was doing 80% of my deals. Okay. So I may have had several hundred people on a list, but I may only moved most of them to the top 5 buyers. So once I understood what their investment criteria was, they call it buy box now. Once you understand where they're buying, how much they can pay, how they're going to fund it, you can start doing deals a lot easier.
How are you finding your deals at that time? How are you finding deals right now?
Back then I was doing tremendous amounts of direct mail.
Okay.
But it was a little more difficult back in the beginning because we'd have to get them printed at like Office Max, and then my kids were in middle school back then, and they would do the stamps and the return label type thing, whatever the address label and the stamp. So they were sort of involved as well. And then over time, I started doing more yellow letters, and I found out my mother-in-law Judy really enjoyed writing letters. So literally, she wrote all my yellow letters out on a yellow pad of paper. We put them in a regular envelope and like old school, actually physical mailed them. But then over time, I get most of my deals now from referrals,
Okay.
and the referrals could be from a realtor with a pocket listing, or another investor, or a lot of different areas because I've been doing it a long time now.
Right. If you described your business now, would you, and you broke it down into percentages, how many of these are you holding? Because I know, I follow you, I mean, every day, and I can count on that first post at the beginning of the month. Guess what day it is?
Rent's due.
Rent's due, paycheck, payday. What percentage of your how much are you holding right now? Are you still wholesaling, assigning contracts? How would you break your business down right now?
I love to buy and hold. That's long term. I just bought 2 more duplexes in the last couple months, closing on one next Wednesday. I love duplexes. They're so easy. But I've done up to 20 units. And we still flip. I'll flip probably 5 to 10 houses a year.
Okay.
I really, I love to buy and hold. And now a lot of my time is working with my 2 daughters. They're both very active investing, flipping and buying and holding their own properties. So between my deals and their deals, we're always rehabbing somewhere.
Right. I love it. For someone, getting into the business for the first time, what do you suggest?
Well, you got to kind of decide what your goals are. I think, everybody needs some eat money, or active income.
Okay.
That's your highest tax opportunity as well. But I know people need that. So if you need money to live with, active income, then you could be a realtor, I guess, if you wanted to. You could wholesale, you could fix and flip. But once you're kind of over that hump, you could maybe flip some and then take some of the profit from that to invest in rental property. That's where you're gonna, looking back at all the deals I did over all the years, over 1,000 transactions.
Oh, wow.
I mean, I certainly wish I had more buy and hold than I do,
Right.
but I've still got enough. I'm good.
Yeah. So, I mean, I get asked this all the time, and I sort of volunteer and help out some of the younger investors. I love real
Yeah.
estate. It's we're not making real estate anymore. We're not making any more land. It's a finite resource, just like our time. Um, but if you're under, you don't have a lot of capital, would you suggest going straight into the wholesaling aspect, learning the business, assigning contracts, and then transitioning into the flip?
Yeah, that's a good path to go. You could do that. Keep in mind, the wholesaling laws around the country are changing. So you got to be aware of what your local regulations are. But
Right.
yeah, I've always liked wholesaling for starting. Nowadays, it takes a lot of marketing to get your wholesale deals. There's a lot of competition for deals. So you got to be aware of that, because the larger wholesalers in your market are going to spend $40,000, $50,000 a month on marketing.
Oh, whoa, whoa.
You know what? Things like driving for dollars and networking at the RIAs and meetups and things, all of that does work.
Right.
You
And
could
and the
also
driving for,
JV. You could
yeah.
JV with another wholesaler to get started.
All right. So talk real quick, explain JV.
Well, I'm just thinking, if I was starting out and
Yeah.
you wanted to create active income and you don't have the marketing budget, you may have a buyers. Start with creating network of buyers understanding what their investment criteria is, and then network with the other wholesalers in your market and see if you can move some of their deals for them for a fee or a percentage of the deal.
Okay. Oh, right. So, in my business plan, start where I like starting in real estate, new real estate agents, new commercial people. I always say, start working with buyers, cut your teeth working with buyers. And in your situation, you say build up a buyers list, and then and those could be the wholesalers that send these deals to. Low capitalization to start off, a lot of groundwork, a lot of hours, a lot of research, a lot of getting started, but that doesn't cost a lot. It's time, but financially it allows you to get in that position. How would you build a buyers list right now?
I think building the buyers list is the easy part. So, go to Facebook groups, go to your local meetups, and you'll find plenty of people buying. I think if you're going to start out going owner direct, then you got to get comfortable talking to people. And I would recommend starting to call for sale by owners. They're very warm. They're very easy. It's easier than cold calling. And just start talking to them and making offers direct as well.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, I agree.
For
And
sale by owner and for rent by owner, just like the example I gave a few minutes ago.
okay, I like that. The for rent by owners, I like that. What I think a lot of people don't understand is sometimes people, homeowners want a quick exit, and they don't want to do an open house. They don't want to have to do the repairs necessary for the agent to list and show the property. And so, I approach this as you're being of service. You really are. Um, People don't want to let their neighbors know they're selling for whatever reason. Sometimes maybe it's an inherited property and the family's out of state. It's just there's a real niche, a real service value here, as far as I'm concerned, and there's just an opportunity to help others and be of service. And in any type of business, if you're not doing it with some motive for profit, it's not really a business. So I get exactly what you're saying. How many real estate agents are in your network?
I love working with realtors actually because they do get pocket listings as well. And, we could talk about, I love the way that you talk about solving problems because that's the whole key. Whether somebody's going through divorce, they're a burned out landlord, they inherited a property, they've all got problems to solve. And if you really want to find the most motivated people, you want to stack up those motivations. So you could get like an aging landlord who's just burned out with tenant problems, behind in his repairs and having some health issues. Say they have a problem to solve. And I remember one, Matt, where somebody had actually inherited a house and their parents were hoarders and they were embarrassed. And by the way, they lived out of state, which is another motivation. And I remember mentioning to this guy as he was trying to go through his parents' stuff, like, how would you like to sign a contract and never come back to this property and deal with your parents' stuff again? How would that make you feel? And he like came over and he gave me a giant hug. And I thought he was going to give me a kiss on the cheek. I mean, he was really excited.
Yeah.
So we signed a contract. I said, take what you want tonight. He was from New York State as well. I said, just go back to New York tomorrow. When we close, we'll clean the place out for you.
Right.
All problems.
I love, yeah. I mean, yeah, and we're so, and I mean, Musk says it. Our compensation is directly
Yes.
proportionate to the difficulty of the challenges we solve, and and there's a real place for that in this business, and I love it. And licensing's changing. I know there's new regulations coming into the business. California will probably. I mean, I think it's Georgia, South Carolina. There's some challenges there, as far as licensing and how you can, I guess, run the business. But again, we're solving problems, and I don't understand how some wholesalers just don't want to work with real estate agents, and I don't understand why some real estate agents don't want to work with wholesalers. I think there's congruity there. There's synergism. I mean, it's for me, it's a win-win, and then eliminate a potential audience, either on the real estate agent side or the real estate wholesaler side, I think you're doing yourself and your clients, a big disservice. We've got to dovetail this in because I'm just super impressed with this. Let's talk about Share the Love and
Okay.
how that got started. And wait, and time out before we go any further. I just wanted to give a shout out to Michael Van Witch. Okay, I saw there that I don't want to say how, a sizable donation, and he's with HVAC LLC. Is he in your neighborhood up there?
He is in Virginia, incredible HVAC, and what a great guy. And we did this Dealmaker Christmas party last year, and he came and he saw the mission and the vision, and he jumped in and he followed through and became a corporate sponsor, which was amazing. And then he and his mother just went to Nicaragua a few weeks ago for delivering some wheelchairs as well. So I love stories like that. Absolutely.
Yeah. So let's talk about the wheelchairs. Talk about the mission of the Chair for Love and how it works and who it benefits and the model behind that, how it started.
Yeah, Share the Love is all about giving mobility to people in primarily third world countries who have really no chance of having a wheelchair. Here in the United States, we have a lot of safety nets. Everybody pretty much who needs a wheelchair has one. But if you go to Africa or the Philippines and Nicaragua or other places, they've literally could be missing a leg or two legs, and they could be transporting themselves on their knuckles, literally walking on their knuckles, or somebody could be carrying them on their back. That's how they get around. So when you give this gift of mobility, I can't describe the emotion and the connection you get when you actually deliver it to them. Because Matt, I did it. So like I pick people up and we put them in a wheelchair.
Oh.
And you're just like eyeball to eyeball as you get them like situated in there, and they reach out and they give you these giant hugs, and you get kissed over and over. And believe me, I am not an emotional person, but it is a very emotional connection. And I just can't describe the joy. I just don't believe anyone has lived until you've given something to somebody that they have no way of paying you back.
Right.
It's just, believe me, it's just pure joy. And it goes back, everything goes back to like Zig Ziglar. And if you help enough other people get what they want, you're going to have everything you need. That's how I've built my life, around that one quote, all the way through real estate, all the way through being a mission-driven life.
Yeah, I saw your quote. It's like the fulfillment, the inner peace, joy, happiness that you get when you're helping someone, and you're not doing it for any type of payback. You're really doing it with purpose and helping someone. I read and I try and exemplify this in my life. If you want to build up your self-esteem, help someone else. But if you really, really want to build up your self-esteem, help someone else and don't tell anyone about it.
There you go.
And that's what you're doing. Yeah. I mean, and then the United States, we don't realize how good we have it sometimes, and what a positive example you and your team are setting for others, and it helps us as a country. It shows that we're not just these gritty capitalists with crazy ideas, and it purpose-driven life. I love it. Rick Warren, and I don't want to go too biblical here, but I think it was, John 3:16, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son. Mm-hmm. And then you dovetail that into Paul, and I think it was his letter to the Corinthians is, faith, hope, and love. And the greatest of these is love. So if you tie those two together, to really love is to give, and love is the greatest, of all of them, faith, hope, and love. And that servant attitude that you have and the fulfillment that you get. And, I think it really starts with giving. I mean, it really, it starts with giving. And I know that's a part of your philosophy, and it's led to the expansion, circling back to the elite deal makers. I mean, you're
It
helping
has.
others out.
Yeah, the truth is, like, without having a mission behind that, I wouldn't scale it or be all in. Though I hear the stories from the attendees, Matt, that are very heartwarming because we're teaching people to make a lot of money, to build a legacy, to build wealth. All of that is great, but there's more to life than that as well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's I'm grateful to have you on here. We've got about 5 minutes left. Uh, talk about the real estate market in Virginia overall. What's going on there?
Real estate market here is strong still. Like, we're not seeing, 10 offers in 24 hours like 2021.
Right.
But it is still strong here in Virginia, and property is moving. Prices are up, rents are strong, property's renting really easy. However, like, I also invest in Florida, and it's a lot different there, in my opinion. Some of the markets in Florida took on a lot of inventory at the end of this year, and properties, the sales slowed way down. So isn't real estate always hyper local though?
Yeah, 100%. 100%. And it's still the best investment I think you can make
I agree.
with post-tax dollars. But now with all these self-directed, retirement plans, there's opportunities to take a self-directed IRA, a self-directed retirement account, and invest in real estate. Are any of your buyers doing that?
I'm doing that. I invest a
Okay.
lot with my self-directed IRA. I love doing lending out of mine, and I've been doing a lot of wraps. But yes, why not? Why would you ever? That's what I love about your 1031s. We haven't talked about that, but that's
Right.
like the best gift Congress has ever given.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, it is. It's been around a while. A lot of people don't know about it, but I mean, the tax deferral and the ability to compound, your returns year after year. People forget the benefits and advantages of compounding interest, and then your self-directed IRAs where you can do that and talk about the notes. I mean, I mean, I look at your deal maker and your online presence, and it's everyone from real estate wholesalers, real estate investors, loan note buyers, note sellers.
I know.
It's just you're giving every opportunity for individuals to invest in real estate, and that self-directed. Who are you using as trustees typically for your retirement accounts?
Well, that is a tough question because that whoever you if you use a trustee, I'm using trust, but a lot of people don't. You
Okay.
don't need to use a trust or an LLC, but it's nice to have that checkbook type control. But if you're doing a personal property trust where you're holding your self-directed IRA account, you've got to really trust that person because they have access to your money. And you've got to really choose that wisely because I know there's friends of mine who've chosen the wrong person.
Right. From a corporate standpoint, I mean, Schwab doesn't really allow you. Charles Schwab or Fidelity, I don't
No,
know if they're allowing you to do those self-directed IRAs. But what's a big, large, reputable, trust company? And I say trust, I throw that around not
yeah.
so much in the LLC or, individual trust component, but what's a good
Well,
large?
Equity Trust has been around a long time. I always use Quest Trust. Now, Quest, I'm still there, but recently sold to Inspira, which has become really a large self-directed IRA company. But I like SEP IRA and others as well. So there's some really good ones out there, and you can do all your real estate deals. You can lend, you can buy and hold. I mean, if you're a little bit careful, you could do a wholesale deal or a flip even. So there are rules around all of that, but I'd encourage all of your listeners to learn about self-directed IRAs.
Yeah, I agree. You know what you're getting. You've got an asset, literally a physical asset to hold. Real quick, talk about your buy box. If someone's going to approach you with a deal, what are you looking for? As we got about a minute left.
Okay. Well, I love to buy and hold, so that would be the first thing I would love. And it's got to have equity and it's got to have the ability to create cash flow so I can get into permanent financing, unless it's got seller financing, of course. And that's it. Like I'm pretty open in Central Virginia primarily right now. And if somebody's got 2 to 20 units, that's kind of the area I'd be looking. But I don't really care what the starting point always is, Matt. Like it can need a lot of work. It could have rents that are really low. As long as I can, reposition it, I'll be good. I'll give you an example. Like we bought one.
Got about 15 seconds, Jim.
All right. We bought one where the rents were like $800. We fixed it up and we re-rented those apartments at $2,000 each.
Perfect. Perfect. How do we get a hold of you?
Well, you can email me, Jim at elitedealmakers.com, go to elitedealmakers.com or dealmakermeetups.com. Any of those are always great.
I'd encourage everyone out there to participate, get to one of these conferences. Jim, thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule, sharing, the Chairs for Love. What a phenomenal organization. We'll circle back. I'm going to really try and get back there in March if you have an extra ticket I can get from you.
Love to do it. Thanks for having me on today.
Thanks, Jim. You're awesome.